Okay, welcome to lesson 16. We're going to build a little, let's try it again.
Printer can print up to 10 lines per second.
Welcome home, Columbia. Beautiful, beautiful.
This printer can print up to 10 lines per second. This printer can print up to 10 lines per second.
A simple clock. This is what it's going to look like. Do that over. Okay, welcome to lesson 16. We are going to build a clock. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. There we go. We got a web page. Looks like we've got an old version here. And there's our clock. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and shut that down so that it's not distracting. And if you want to pause this and copy down the style here, the CSS, and give it a title if you want. This line here, meta character set, we haven't been using that, but it's kind of a good idea to put that in there. Not critical. Make sure you copy down this P tag right here in the HTML. Okay, so pause this and copy that down. And then we can get coding. I got to start this from scratch. This shouldn't be there. Okay, I'm going to make my file a little bigger here. My window's a little bigger. Okay, so I'm going to write a function. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to just call it run clock. And you have to spell that right. And the first thing I'm going to do in the function is to grab this p tag with an ID of clock. So I'm going to create a variable called clock, and this variable can be any name you want. Just make it meaningful. Make it logical. Let clock equal document get element by ID, and the ID is clock. All right, so now we got it. So we grabbed that. What we did is we grabbed this P element in our HTML and we assigned it to a JavaScript variable called clock. Okay, so now I am going to use a function in JavaScript which is called date. And I'm going to create a variable called now. So let now equal new date. Sometimes we use new when we're creating an object. Especially if we're creating an object like a JavaScript object. What we're saying is, I want a new date object and I'm going to call it now. And then down here, I forgot this line. I got to go refer to my notes here. Now to locale time string. This is a weird. So I'm going to actually copy this because it's strange language. So I'm going to say, okay, so I have my clock variable and I'm going to say clock inner text equals now to locale time string. So this to locale time string looks really strange to me. It probably looks strange to you. It's basically a function that is part of the date object. You know, someone else wrote this function, I didn't write it, and they called it to locale time string. I think it's kind of confusing, but whatever. So, oh, I forgot the T here. So what I did is I grabbed, so I got our variable called now, which is a date object. And then I grabbed this function in the date object. So again, somebody else wrote the date object. Somebody else wrote this function of the date object, and we're just using it. Okay, we just created our own date object. We called it now, and we're using this function of that object. Again, functions in objects are called methods. So you can use, so you'll see the word method used more than you'll see the word function used to refer to a function of an object, if that makes sense. Just think about, anytime you see the word method, just think function, okay? All right, so we are saying set the text of this clock variable that we created right here to this time string. So basically it's taking the time, it's converting it to a string, and now we're assigning it to this clock variable that we grabbed. So we're going to put it inside this paragraph. I hope that's not confusing. And then we're going to set timeout. Remember set timeout? Again, you have to spell it correctly. And what we're going to do is every second, we're going to call our run clock function. So that way we can update our clock every second. Okay, so in our set timeout, I'm going to put in run clock, comma, 1000. Remember that 1000 milliseconds is 1 second. Okay, it's missing one thing. We have to call the run clock function. Now, I'm going to call it below here. And you're probably thinking, how can you call it below? So what happens with a function is this call right here will see the function even though the call is after the function. So in other words, I could put this run clock up here if I wanted, or I can put it below. Okay, so that's an important feature to keep in mind. You can call the function before or after you create it. So I'm going to save that and run it. And there's our clock. Get rid of this old file here. So there's our clock. All right, so I encourage you to play around this, especially with the CSS up here. So I got a font family, I got size, I got color. Play around with that. Change all kinds of stuff in here just to make it. Change all these colors, change sizes, change the font family. And by the way, this is important. If you want to find some colors, for instance, I got sky blue here. Do a search on CSS colors, and you'll find a whole bunch of standard colors. Also, do a search on JavaScript. No, do a search on CSS font family, and you will get some different fonts. Okay? So that's that. Play around with that. Have fun with that. Make your clock look better than my clock. I actually don't even like this font family. I should change that. But play around with that. Have fun. And thanks for joining me. I will see you in lesson 17. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Stay tuned. See you next time.